Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Collective Intelligence Block Party number 30. This is our 30th consecutive block party. And here we are kicking off Food Healers with Dr. Silas Rao, Ray, Wouter, and myself, Jamin. Silas, how you doing today? You were just talking about some super cool stuff. I don't want to break your flow. Go for it.
Yeah, no, I was saying, thank you so much, Jamin. I mean, I was saying that, if when we are at the top of the mountain looking down to see where we have to go, I mean, we need to be very clear on where we have to go, which is we have to solve, we have to achieve all these UN Sustainable Development Goals, except goal number 8, which is the Trojan horse goal, right? So we need to check that out. That's economic growth and decent jobs. I mean, who cares if people are just singing and dancing and we're meeting all the goals and they don't have jobs, right? Who cares? So who really put that goal in there? I mean, that's a goal that's put in there to get us distracted so that we focus on economic growth and think that if we just grow the economy, we can solve all the other goals, meet all the other goals, right? That's the story we're being told. So check that out. And then you look at the other goals and you see which ones can we meet right away. And the one that we can meet right away is zero hunger, goal number 2. So zero hunger we can meet very quickly if we put our minds to it, because it doesn't cost much to feed everybody. So this is like saying, if you're at the top of a mountain and you see that you need to get to the promised land, and you see how beautiful it is, we don't focus on the cliff that you're going to fall off if you go the wrong way. You focus on what is the next step that you need to take to go down the mountain safely with everybody in tow, right? So that's the right way to deal with this issue. It's not about just focusing on, oh my God, we're going to fall here. We're going to kill everything off. We're going to do. No, if you start doing the right thing, we will go down the mountain correctly and we will get to the land where we need to be. Where everyone thrives, all animals thrive, nature thrives, and human beings thrive, right? And you do it step by step. You don't do it, you don't just sit here and figure out, oh my God, how hard is it to do all these things simultaneously? Yeah, it is hard to do all these things simultaneously, but let's just achieve one goal that unites all of us, makes us all healthy, and then we'll put our minds together and solve the other goals. We'll meet all the other goals. Okay? Ultimately, when we meet all 16 goals, we are in the promised land. That's the land we want to get to. Okay? Gender equality, all these goals, they are beautiful goals, except goal number 8. Throw that out. And the rest are all good. So that's the idea behind Food Healers, because that to me is the immediate next step that we should be meeting, is having healthy, immune boosting plant foods, vegan foods, easily available to everybody on the planet. And so that's our job. In fact, so I just got an email from Dimitri saying that there are tribes in Nevada who are looking for food and we need to meet them to figure out how to get the food to them. So it's step by step, we need to start appealing to people. What they're doing in Sao Paulo is amazing. So they're feeding 26,000 families on a regular basis. But those families in the current system don't have jobs. So they don't have any income. It's no fault of their own because all the restaurants are closed. Lots of things are closed because of COVID-19. So we can't sit around saying, oh yeah, do your work and then you'll get food. So this has completely upended our old model, right? COVID-19. And so therefore we need to figure out a different way to get there. So I am thinking that during the 11 days of global unity, first of all, it's the first day is completely booked already for common programs. So there will be no separate convergence rooms for the first day. So September 11th is booked. So it's only from September 12th through 21st. And my goal in the veganism and global transformation room is to try and convince everybody in the peace movement that food healers should be their main goal. Zero hunger should be their main goal. So whatever we need to do to make that happen, we need to do that. So so they have these open space slots, which are 2 hours per day, where all the rooms are going to come to a single room, and we are going to just propose topics and then go back and talk about those topics. So I want to create topics that help us get to this goal of getting the peace movement behind food healers. Okay, so we need to propose topics like that. So one topic, it turns out that they're scheduling it at a time when we had already spoken to our people about the Animal Agriculture is Immoral book. So that book is going to be released on September 14th at 9 a.m. and 9 a.m. Pacific time, and that's when they scheduled the open space. And I thought at first, oh my God, it's a clash, and therefore I have to go change and all that. And then I realized, no, that should be the open space topic. So we can go, someone can go to the open space group and say, the topic is going to be animal agriculture is immoral. So please join us in this room and let's talk about it. Right? And then we'll show them the book we have written and all the articles, and the panel will be there. And so I think that's a very valid topic to go and present to the whole group. And then of course, solving goal number 2 is the easiest. SDG number 2 is the easiest. That should be a topic. Achieving zero hunger is the easiest goal. And get people to come to us, and then we can talk about the K-Mama app. And I want to sort out all my issues with the K-Mama app and make it available by the time September 11th rolls around. That's one of my goals. Wow, Jamin, that's such a beautiful place he has.
I think I saw Sasquatch. Oh no, it was Jamin.
Exactly both, and just feeding the crows. No, so beautiful, Silas. And I gave Walter a presentation on Saturday, which I'll show some slides from. And I talked about donut economics, the simple version. And if you think about it, see, people love to donate to stuff that's efficient and that solves problems that they care about. Everyone cares about hunger, but we've been brought up with this idea that it's impossible to solve. And then it gets mixed with overpopulation. And there's basically, though very few people say it out loud, a lot of people, particularly rich people, think it, and they use it as an excuse, is that if we feed these people, then they'll just have more babies, and then there'll be more people. And when actually the opposite is true. It's poverty that causes overpopulation, right? Not food. Just look at the countries where they've eradicated poverty. You've got negative population growth. But anyway, that's a tangent. The bottom line is, when people see that we actually can do this extremely efficiently, they will support it. And that's exactly why I'm going out on the streets of Whidbey Island today, actually on the main highway, where there's going to be a lot of traffic. And the first objective is get everyone's attention, right? And this is a point that's sometimes lost on some people. But let me give a story from, raise your hand if you've seen the movie Milk, about Harvey Milk and gay rights. Okay, awesome. It's a must-see, Walter, simply called Milk. And there's a scene in there where it's maybe a third of the way through the movie. Harvey's been elected to the Board of Supervisors, and he's trying to push gay rights. But nobody really is interested in gay rights. That's kind of a very niche thing. You know, that's for those weird people down on the Castro Street, and let them do their thing and just don't even talk to me about it. So he's like, okay, well, he was meeting with basically his brain trust, which was substantial. And he's like, okay, what do we do? What do we focus on? Right? What is the number one issue that everyone cares about? What's the issue that'll get everyone off their seats and say, yeah, we got to do this? Now, this is the mid 70s. And the issue that they hit upon, somebody said it in the meeting. Raise your hand if you remember this line when they said it. Somebody said, listen, Harvey, if you could clean up the dog shit in San Francisco, whoever cleans up the dog shit will be the next mayor of San Francisco. Because, you know, it's a crowded city, and this is the 70s. It's before we had all these laws. They pioneered the first law. And the way Harvey did it was he called a press conference on some big lawn in front of the city government building. And he stepped in a pile of dog shit and then lifted up his shoe for the cameras to see. And he got everyone laughing. And then they passed the law. They pioneered it, right? Where's my point with this? Where am I going with this? So I'm now meeting, by the way, good news. So there's a film producer here on the island, and we've been talking about this. She's in, and we're now going to do a standing weekly meeting every Tuesday on the Solution Club at noon Pacific time, specifically focused on stone soup for Whidbey Island. And there's so many rich people here. I mean, there's literally billionaires who have big places here and whatnot. And so once they see us, everybody kind of knows each other on Whidbey Island. And so when they see us starting this, they're going to jump in, right? And we're going to feed everyone. And Silas, when they hear about the needs that you've identified, that your organization is addressing in the Southwest, First Nations elders, among many others, they're going to donate to that, right? And because my message is going to be, hey, listen, if you want to donate, don't donate to us, right? We've got Whidbey covered. Donate to Silas, donate to Food Healers in Arizona. The bottom line is they're going to donate to everything. I mean, when they see how efficient this is, they're going to donate like crazy. And so getting back to Harvey Milk and the dog shit story. So we talked about this a fair amount, Melissa and I, and it's like, what sign do I want to hold up on Whidbey? Because I've got climate change signs, and then I've got some other signs. And what I'm going for is not where we want to get to, which is feeding everyone and climate change, but it's the dog shit issue that gets us smiling, laughing, and started. Okay, what is the dog shit issue on Whidbey Island? It's drugs. You got a whole bunch of youth on drugs, addicted, doing all kinds of terrible stuff. And so let me screen share, and I'm going to show the 3 signs that kind of builds up to something. So 1, 2, 3. So here goes. Here's the first sign. And I've done a whole campaign about this starting in early 2017, and there's a whole backstory to it. But this gets everyone's attention. And especially on Whidbey Island, and I'm a quarter mile where they just got off the ferry. So the implication is that drugs are moving on the ferry, which they are. So that gets everyone's attention. The next sign, I think Ray will like this one. Trump, grow some huevos, right? The third sign is the one in the middle. So after you've seen these 2 that are right out there in your face, the third is actually really big. It's 8 feet wide by 5 feet tall.
What is huevos?
Oh, sorry. Huevos means eggs in Spanish, and but it's also used in Mexican culture to mean like balls. Like, dude, grow some balls, right? So this is a huge slap in the face to Trump, who 4 years ago campaigned that he was going to get rid of these guys, the criminal drug cartels. What has he done? A whole lot of nada, a whole lot of nothing. So we're saying, Trump, grow some huevos. And now the third sign, which really gets to the punchline, I'm going to show an image of it halfway through. Melissa just completed it yesterday afternoon. So it's got George Washington in the lower right, Whidbey Island on the left, Mother Earth in the upper right. Climate, food, safety, and the future of life on Earth. It's time for a conversation. And then you see coming out of, if you see my mouse, coming out of George Washington's mouth is this big speech balloon that says, join the conversation.cc. So, so for starters, this is going to get everyone's attention. This is going to get everyone's attention because everyone on Whidbey cares about kids and drugs and all this stuff. So it's the dog shit issue. And I'm going to be dressed in my full Darth Vader costume, singing English and Spanish love songs, right? And so it's just with amplification and music and everything, it's going to get everyone's attention. Everyone's going to be talking about it. I know my island. And that'll get people into the conversation, and that'll get people into the conversation about feeding everyone here on Whidbey. Once we've done it on Whidbey, we say, all right, now we're expanding to Seattle, and we'll drive truckloads of the stew into Seattle on a daily basis, feed Seattle, expand to Portland, et cetera, et cetera. And meanwhile, Silas has started some really awesome programs for food healers in the Southwest. This is just going to expand like crazy. It's going to be a virtuous cycle because the amount of donations and the amount of people volunteering with that will exceed the cost of the operations. It will be profitable. When you start in rich communities like Whidbey Island that everybody knows everybody, everyone's going to jump on board. And it's going to be a hell of a story. And then we take it to Seattle and it'll just be this growing story of they're feeding everyone. That's a hell of a story. And the donations exceed the cost of the food? What? That spells exponential growth. That's the big idea. And so I want to run through kind of some of the latest stuff of a presentation that I was showing to Wouter on Saturday. But this is also with a view to blasting into people's minds. What was the issue that put Harvey Milk, an unknown, relatively unknown San Francisco Board of Supervisor member, on the front page? It was shit. It was dog shit, right? And so I'm going to step out on a limb here. Well, first, let me pause, see if there's any comments or questions before I show some other slides.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a real good idea. And like, I think it'll get attention. It only will matter, I think, once you have like the momentum going, like to capture people's attention, like to really maximize that awareness. And that's like, I think you get one chance of this if to really do this well. So that's like, it's exciting. That's my opinion about it.
Awesome. Thank you, Wouter. Alrighty, let me show some more slides. These pertain to, and this is when people go to the conversation.cc, they'll see this. Remember, dog shit issue, #1 that got people awake. So I'm calling this presentation, The Shit, the Funk, and the Ugly. The shit, the funk, and the ugly. And we're building off of course, Silas, Ray, have you guys both seen The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly? It's just classic. You know, it's the first Clint Eastwood movie that really made him famous. And so I'm building off of that. And I'll go through this relatively quickly. The goal is to save, heal, and transform life on Earth. Let's expand that to save, heal, and intentionally transform life on Earth. And that forms the acronym SHIT, okay? We say this is the goal. The goal is the shit, right? It's a process, not a destination. So how do we get there? Step one, identify where we are. Where are we on the map? We're in a death spiral in terms of planetary overheating, economic collapse, political collapse, 6 mass extinction, pandemics, you name it, we're there. We need a new pathway. The pathway to the shit, to saving, healing, and transforming life on Earth. But there's so many on-ramps and off-ramps. Where do we go? How do we get the off-ramp that we want? Off of the death spiral and onto the shit. How do we do this? And we also need complete turn-by-turn directions, not just the next exit. But there's good news, which is that there's only one turn that we need to focus on at any given moment, which is the very next turn. So what should that very next turn be? And then recompute. Focus on the next turn and then recompute. So what's the very next turn for saving, healing, and transforming life on Earth? So we came up with a list of candidates. The first 4 form the acronym FUNC, F-U-N-C. Hence the shit, the funk, and the ugly. And of the FUNC, the first letter in the, we sometimes do this exercise. Okay, which of these could potentially be the one that unites everyone? Silas gave a great summary at the beginning. It's food. Everyone cares about food, and it's immediately solvable. So we start with food. Plant-based food, and lots of it. Plant-based stew, and the success of it, the efficiency, starts with purchasing, volume purchasing. Mountains of potatoes. You like lentils? So do we. Here are some massive Canadian lentil harvests. If you buy it at the source, buy the full truckload or rail car, it's down to 6.5 cents a pound. So just incredibly economical purchasing. We can also have incredibly efficient manufacturing. These machines are of like continuous rice cookers to like feed a whole Chinese army or something like that, right? So we buy the food in incredible efficiencies, we cook it very efficiently, and then we transport it very efficiently, right to people's homes, right to people's neighborhoods. The stew will be refrigerated. This is the inside of a milk truck, just showing that we have the technology to keep it cool. Keep liquids cool, bulk stew, delivered at the spot. And then this leads to a whole kind of a stack. You think of it as a progression. At the very base layer, we have a new story for humanity, codes for a healthy Earth. Thank you, Dr. Shelley Ostroff and Jan. And then on top of that, the first 2 projects that we can do to promote this are unity and food in a form of dialectic, a self-reinforcing feedback loop, where the more food that we serve to people, the more people learn about it, get excited, donate, contribute, and participate in meetings like this one. Hence more unity, more food, more unity. It's as simple as that. And then on we go to solve all the rest of the problems. That's the basic story. And then, so if that's and then you see F-U-N-C, just swap nuclear and cool, and you have funk. So we have the shit, the funk, and then what's the ugly? Well, the ugly is kind of like a lot of the ugly details. And this is where some people just kind of glaze over and say, no, that's too much for me. That's why I'm just calling it the ugly, right? And here I'm talking about, like, if you look at these as different steps, this is sort of like a path of vectors to get to a final goal. There's different pathways to get to the same goal. Which one shall we take? Well, what are the goals, right? I'm saying it's the shit. Somebody might say, no, it's prosperity for all people. It's, another might say, no, it's all about love, whatever. So we need to have a conversation about goals. What are our goals? What do we want to achieve? We have the United Nations millennial goals, as Silas was talking about earlier, but it's time for a conversation about goals. And then another conversation about pathway to the goals. Strategy. How are we going to get there? Right? So we need to talk about that. And Anyway, then it gets into more details. But the bottom line is the shit, the funk, and the ugly. Starting with the shit. And the first letter in funk is food. So anyway, much work to do on these slides, but that's the basic idea. And thank you all for listening. And now, once again, I will turn it over to whoever wants to share.
I'm trying to think of how to work in George Clinton's "Give Up the Funk." Yeah, because you kind of need both lyrics. Give up the funk. We want the funk. So it's kind of you give up the funk because we're hungry for the funk. You know? Give up the funk on its own kind of as a slogan kind of sounds like give up on it. I think it'll take a little while for people to understand the good, the bad, and the ugly, because at first glance, all three of them seem bad or ugly.
Yeah, but it's really just, it's a way
in a positive way.
Yeah, totally. The shit in the positive way, exactly. You know, in the last 20 years or so, people say, "Oh man, that's the shit. That's like the cool thing," right? So, but it's just a way to blast into the mind. And also, what I like about the shit, the funk, and the ugly is, you know, if you're on a sailboat and everything's cool and calm, everyone's being very polite to each other. But if things are super choppy and people are about to fall overboard, people start to swear. And so it's also partly a reflection of the absolute emergency that we're in, right? You know, hence the Darth Vader costume, hence the criminal drug cartels, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Hence Trump, grow some huevos. I mean, it's time to frickin' amp up the volume here. And another thing about the on the street strategy I'm taking is we're now starting to really expand the market of who's interested in this, because let's face it, whether it's World Unity Week or, you know, Deep Adaptation or Rebel Wisdom or the Good of the Whole or all these groups, two things. You see the same usual suspects in all of these, and they're mostly progressive, privileged, white people, right? The market is super tiny right now, and the rest of the world doesn't even know we exist, right? So it's time to take it to the masses and say, hey, wake up. It's time for a conversation. Shit's going to hell. It's time for a conversation. Who can argue with that, right? Most of the people carrying signs are like, I know the truth. Here it is, and I'm here to stick it in your head. I'm way up here, you're way down there, right? And I'm here pushing information downhill towards you, right? Nobody likes to hear that kind of message. They just drive by, maybe they honk and wave or whatever, but they're like, oh yeah, I've been there, done that. Nothing new here, nothing to see. But if you say, hey, it's time for a conversation, that's a whole different approach. So that's the approach we're taking with the conversation. We're saying, listen, climate, food, safety, and the future of life on Earth. It's time for a conversation, right? Bring them in that way. And then with the food healers, hey, we're starting with food, right? Feeding everyone. I'm going to pause recording just because I didn't want this recording to be too long.